Good morning, everyone. How is everyone? Good? Great. My name is Vu No. I am the president of a consulting firm called C3. I work with clients like yourself, and I specialize in technology, but we also work across different industries. And so what I wanted to do today was to give you a perspective in terms of what our firm has seen in terms of where digital transformation makes the biggest impact in your organization. I won't talk about the sexy stuff, the drones and artificial intelligence and the robotics and so forth. That's a lot of fun, but it's not materially impacts your business today. And so this presentation is about what can you leave after my 30-minute talk and make impact to your business right away. But before we start talking about impact, I wanted to share an experience, an amazing experience I had last night in Montreal. Steve took me out for ice cream. So who in the room, show of hands, have been to an ice cream shop called Chocolat Favorite? Yeah, see, the big smiles come. So Steve was talking about it throughout dinner. He's like, I got to take you here. It's so amazing. He went on and on and on. And I was like, how good can soft serve ice cream be, right? Sure enough, we went there. There was a super long line. I think there was 100 people, but it moved really quickly. I think we were in line for like 15, 20 minutes. And the ice cream was spectacular. It was so good. Now I'm telling it to over 100 people, right? That's how good the ice cream was. So it was real. It wasn't hype, right? And this experience made an impression on me because I wanted to share this experience with you because I think that's our jobs in this room. Like, your jobs is to make that impression on your customers, your students, your constituents that you serve with your technology. And this company has hit it out of the park. They produced an incredible experience that is very memorable, and I want to share it with people. And when the folks who have gone to it, they've raised their hands and they had a huge smile on their face, right? Because the experience is incredible. And so I want to talk about that. How do you use technology to produce a better outcome so that you are heroes in your organization in delivering this exceptional experience? So much of technology is hype, right? And it's hard when your day-to-day job isn't to be a consultant, to look through everything, to figure out what's real, what's not. And but let's do a quick, just to show how much has changed. Sometimes when you're in technology, it's hard to realize that in a very short amount of time, a lot of things have changed. 20 years ago, Windows was launching, eBay was launching, and we received the CD, I was going to say DVD, CD of AOL, right? So that's where we came from. Like, that's crazy, right? Where we are today. So some of the trends that we hear is cloud, right? Cloud's not going anywhere. Cloud's here to stay. In a couple of years, it's going to be 50% of the spend. So that's no news, right? So that's real. This is really dramatic, the uptake in mobility, and it really has happened in the past couple of years. This huge spike. It's not even a hockey stick. It's like it's a rocket ship in terms of the amount of smartphones that people are using in their organization. And a lot of it's coming from emerging markets as well, right? You hear about Microsoft acquiring Nokia and so forth, and Xiaomi, a lot of the Chinese producing phones and so forth. Feature phones, the basic phones that are not smartphones, are not really selling very well. It's the smartphones that have a lot of capabilities that's really driven this trend. So very, very material, and I think personally in our lives we know how important our phones are. This device thing, I'm on the fence with putting this slide in. Essentially it's a slide speaking to the Internet of Things. And you can slice the Internet of Things, like it's just devices connected to the Internet, devices sending lots of information out. So I own a cottage, and I want to, we have a lock on the cottage. It's Wi-Fi, so I can set codes for friends to visit it. Our cleaner comes. Our thermostats is also Wi-Fi, and so I can set the temperature. You know, in winter, in a couple hours, we're going to be there, so I turn it on. Our security cameras, I can show you up to see if anyone's breaking into a cottage right now. That's what we're talking about here, right? Is that devices, everyday devices are getting smarter, even fridges, right? Imagine your fridge being able to give you a list of items of, I get texts from my wife, you need to pick up milk. But maybe in a short couple of years, I'll get a text from my fridge, so you need to pick up milk, right? That's what we're talking about here in terms of the devices. So I think that's real, right? This is, I think, most interesting to your business. And I can tell you from firsthand experiences working with large public companies, Fortune 500 companies, and working with smaller organizations across different industries, that this change around social and video is really hard for organizations to figure out. But it's very significant. And here's why. So we know mobility is just very pervasive. It's reaching saturation. It is in saturations in developed markets. Video consumption on mobile phones in the next 3 years will be 70% of that traffic to the phone. So it's really significant. From a social media perspective, I think a lot of my clients that I consult to are very surprised to learn how influential social media. I think we have a sense that on our personal lives, when we buy something, we go on the internet, we go on Facebook, we go on a forum, we go on YouTube, we look at reviews, and that they impact our decision making. But from a B2B perspective, it's identical. Like that's what that you need to internalize, right? That the people in the workplace also use the same channels, also use social media, also use video to make their purchases. I think a couple of years ago, or actually no, it's not a couple of years, I would say 4 years ago, CEB released a study to say that the salesperson's dead, right? And the research behind it was global research, was saying that 60% of the sales cycle is completed before someone even reaches your organization to transact. And a lot of that 60% is all online research. It's all social media. And then Forrester, this past summer, released also a very global study that supported the same view, that there's this dramatic shift to people not wanting to interact with your organization from a sales and marketing perspective. They want to make their own decision, and then they're going to approach you, right? That makes it very difficult for you to do your jobs. And so that's very real. That's very real. And it's also very difficult for organizations. And I won't touch on this. I could do a whole presentation on this. But this is not one of my 3 things that you should focus on. Because I know it's very difficult for you to translate that right away. So the changes that are happening from now to 2020 is greater than the change that's happened in the past 20 years. So it was neat to kind of look back to see, yes, eBay just launched, Windows 95 just launched, and AOL just launched. But the next 5 years, the changes that we'll see is going to be even accelerated and faster. And so where should we focus, right? We need a starting point. So there's 3 things I'm recommending you focus. The first thing is upskill. So I'm referring to training your employees, invest in your employees. The second thing is invest in mobility, right? Anything you can do to integrate mobility into a workflow is going to have immediate impact in your business. And the last one is digitize, and we'll talk about automation. That's really what I'm referring to here. So let's look at training. Deb Schultz is an amazing woman entrepreneur. She's also happens to be a designer as well. And she's coined this term that she's very well known for now, because I think it really summarizes what we're talking about, why investing in people is so significant. Technology changes all the time, but people don't, right? We're still made from blood, we're still warm, we still have feelings, and the change that's happening from a technology perspective is so dramatic that the folks in the room, both partners and clients and customers and working in IT departments, we forget that we're servicing warm-blooded people, and they don't change as fast as technology. And so that's why investment in training is so significant. And the training helps to just upskill your entire organization. Here's some stats in terms of if your organization is considered savvy, if you're integrating technology into your organization in an effective way, the outcome is what we see here. You're hiring more people, you can attract more people, and then your revenue growth is reflected in terms of that tech savviness of your organization. These are Canadian numbers. The Business Development Canada released a study back a couple months ago. This is specific to small businesses, so this applies that SMB space. Is that the training investment is greater than the hardware and software or technology investment in a small business organization. And this is very telling because it's saying that we could definitely invest more in technology, but if we don't keep our people keep them on the pace of change, upskill them, train them on using what technology we have, that additional investment in technology just won't convey to results, right? So I think when we look up our budgets, we often forget the people side, the training needs to be invested. So not a dramatic recommendation, but I just wanted to show that's rooted in numbers here, and specifically in the SMB space. And then I think a lot of folks in the room have seen the stats here. It's almost like being Canadian, you're like, yeah, we're behind the US, right? And so for every dollar that we spend in information and communication technology for our employees, the US is spending 2. So does that sound pretty bad to you? And that's been stable that way for the past 20 years. But my team and I dig into the numbers further, and it's even worse. And I don't know why this is not in the news, right? So most of the folks, actually I wanted to do this. So who in the room is from public sector? From education and commercial. Okay, perfect. So you really fit into this definition of information, cultural, professional, scientific, technical industries. That's the group. This is the group of who you would think, would you think they have the least or most spent? I think the perception is that if your business is in one of these categories, that you would spend the most. So in my mind, I thought, if you're in technology and technology related or in a profession, that we would be higher than the $1, right? But in fact, it's less. It's one quarter. It's just dramatic. So I rounded the numbers. So these industries that are supposed to be technology focused, professional services, engineering, all these scientific, is spending on average in Canada $5,000 per employees for IT. In the US, it's $20,000. This happens to be the lowest ratio out of all industries. So the folks in education, you are actually slightly above the US. And so in education, so we're doing okay in education. The highest is manufacturing in Canada. It's almost like 2.3 times what the US spends on average. So, but where you think the spend should be high, it's not. It's quite interesting. So, again, the theme of where do you make the biggest impacts? Just spend. The folks who should be spending are not spending. So let's move into mobility. So there's direct impact here as well. So 1% improvement in using mobile technology generates $2.5 billion in the Canadian economy. So there's a direct correlation between mobile use in your organization and the productive output. This is, so what we're talking about devices. So I was going to ask people how many devices they have, so but you see now already what the number is. So in the next 5 years, for every person on the planet, there's going to be almost 7 devices. That equates to 50 billion devices. And initially when I saw the 50 billion number, I was like, that's not material. That's not real. That's crazy, right? But then I realized how many devices I have. And developing countries will have more connected devices in an emerging market. So this becomes very, very real as well, right? It's the fridge texting you that there's no milk. So let's talk about why mobility from a customer perspective, from a constituent perspective, and from a student perspective, why you need to care about this deeply. If you're not caring about it today, when you leave this room, you need to care about it, and this is why. In a day, a third of a person's day is focused on media consumption. Half of that time is on their phone. So if you think about, from a commercial perspective, engaging someone, trying to sell them something, you've got to be on mobile. If you think about the productivity of your students, how they learn, how they internalize new information, it's on a mobile phone. It's some kind of mobile device. The funny thing is, and I saw, this is interesting because we track all kinds of trends and so forth. Does it surprise the folks in the room that tablets are actually on the decline? Do you see that in your organization? Does that surprise people, or is that you're seeing that? So who's surprised by that stat, that tablets are on the decline? Okay, yeah. Those very shy people. I think it's more of you than just the 10 hands I've seen. It was surprising to me, right? What's happening is a form factor of the tablet isn't as significant or as appealing to folks as the phone, right? It's always with you. It does everything it needs to do. It's incredibly fast. The access to information is incredible. So having a larger screen and lugging that around is what we're seeing is starting to trend down. And from a constituent's perspective, how do you engage them with services? They're always on their phone. Everyone is always on their phone. So think about how to deliver services to the phone. The other aspect of the mobility, it's my last slide on mobility, is you think, actually I'll go back before you read this. There's an assumption that if we're connected all the time, that our work-life balance is out of whack, right? If you're always connected, it's just going to be difficult, right? People calling you all the time, you just have no rest. The research says otherwise, and I personally believe this is true for myself as well, and I'm curious if this is true for you as well. So the use of Wi-Fi obviously is increasing. The use of mobility is also increasing, but people's perception of their demands on their time actually has declined over time with the use of more technology. It really just helps people balance their time. I work round the clock, but I also have time for my family when I need to. I'm able to do that. Is this your experience as well? What's your thoughts? I'm just curious about. Like I think overall people are finding that mobile technology is really helping them balance everything out versus it being detrimental to their own personal time. So we're moving to a society that's always connected and being okay with being connected. I have to tell you the story. It's unrelated to my presentation, but it happened when I came to Montreal. I'm constantly talking to a client or something, and I'm always traveling. So I got off the plane, I got into a taxi, I gave him, in my broken French, the address where I needed to be. And I had to hop on right away with a call with an executive because we needed to work through something. And I was on the phone, and I can tell my taxi driver was not the best taxi driver, And so we came to a stop, and he's telling me that he cannot find my address. And then he decides that he needs to back up in the freeway, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. right? And I'm on the phone with an executive, a C-level executive from a public company talking about their business, and I can tell the taxi driver to stop because we're gonna die, because he's backing up in the freeway. So that's my craziness of, just balancing my life and being on the phone and and trying to act calm as I'm talking to the executive. I just thought that was funny. And in terms of mobility, it affects kind of three areas of your organization. The first is the marketing of your customers, right? And the second one is the productivity of your employees. The third one is millennials. Millennials live on their phones, right? It's almost like a ridiculous statement for me to say that, because it's true. And so if your organization has a strategic strategy to increase the millennials in your organization, because millennials will make up over 50% of the employee base, and right now they're 40% of all consumer segments for everything. They're just significant, right? So a strategy that you can facilitate for your organization is, let's make sure that we are just a mobile-friendly organization, and that will increase your engagement of millennials. So let's talk about the last kind of things that you can do right away to make impact, and it's about digitizing your organization. And this one's tougher to talk through because it really touches all areas of your business, and I want to give you a sense of where in your organization you should think about automating it or digitizing it, or removing paper, how you think about digital transformation for your organization. The first thing I want to talk about was why have a conversation around digitization. It's really a conversation around differentiating. Remember I was saying with Chocolat Favorite, they do a fantastic job of making me remember them, right? That experience. And they have a customer for life. Or if you're an education institution, you want that student to just have an exceptional experience that they'll talk to the friends about. They'll come back for post-secondary education and their adult education in your organization. If you work for public sector, you want your constituents to know that living in this city, this town, is amazing because I'm able to have access to the information when I want to, right? And what you're trying to balance here is that you have to go digital, but digital in itself is not going to make you stand out. It's your differentiation. How are you using it in a unique way that's different from the other schools, from the other city, or from another business, right? That's critical. So think about it in terms of business justification is this, right? It's not just to digitize for the sake of digitizing, it's really to deliver on business outcomes. That's how you justify the investment here. And again, I feel like I'm being a broken record. All the research says that companies that are very savvy or automating are growing much faster, on average 10%. Imagine 10 points driven from technology, the use of technology and digitizing your organization. So I'm a huge fan of Hugh and Gaping Void. I use his stuff extensively in my presentation. If you don't know who he is, if you'd love a break during the day, sign up for his newsletter. It's at Gaping Void. It's Hugh, and he's this incredible thinker, artist that conceptualizes business ideas in pictures, right? I chose this one because so much about digitization is not about the technology, it's actually about the people. It's about your customers. And I doctored his thing to add students and constituents in here as well too. So when you make the lives of your employees better, your students, your constituents, or your customer, you will make everything better. It's really inclusive to think about not just one entity in your organization, but looking at it inclusively as a whole. And where do people invest in digitizing their organization? So the spectrum is this: sales and marketing, which is external to your organization, to internally, the productivity, right? And the data kind of falls that way as well too. Where organizations spend, or where the business model is the strongest to make the investment, is in sales and marketing, right? And then it's solutions, and then you find more operational things. What I find in education and public sector is that the trend is actually more this way. If I were to break this up by industry, it's more looking internally than externally. I think for public sector, it's just as tough to make that investment in marketing, and more increasingly the conversations around how do we integrate social, which is a very difficult way to integrate that. And then I think for education, absolutely, you got to make your systems work, but I think education, your innovation is really to shift your investment externally. Getting the students to know what it is that you're able to deliver from an education perspective is really important. So commercially, this falls. If I were to cut this for education, it's going to probably be the opposite direction. The investment's going to be higher in things like HR, ERP, your internal systems. And automation, if you were to kind of say, Vu, what should be a project that I should start out with? I would say collaboration. So I think this is a funny slide. I didn't hear any laughs, but when organizations say they collaborate, what they're really saying is they do solo collaboration, right? Is that the collaboration really isn't happening. It's just we do our thing, and we hold hands and we say, look, we're one company. What happens when you do deliver on true automation and collaboration initiative is this, right? This is how the world is moving. It's not just a commercial or a business or an organizational thing. We know what we communicate when we go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. This is how we communicate, right? When I work, I think if someone filmed me when I'm working, it's really weird. My mind is like I do like 10 things at one time, right? I'll be surfing the net, I'll be scheduling a meeting, an email comes in, I'll ship that, I'm tweaking a PowerPoint. The streams of information that comes to us and how we influence it through social network looks like this, right? And so you want to invest in automation to really mirror what people do in their personal lives, because that's going to drive more productivity. As we learned, more technology is helping people balance their work and professional lives, not less. And this is true for collaboration. And so what I'll leave you with is these three things. First, and this is really the theme of today's entire day, is put people at the center of your business technology strategy, right? If you can deliver on people outcomes, you will be the hero that I want for you, right, in terms of your strategy and your delivery. And if you can start to, an extension of that is think about starting to change how you address your stakeholders and talk less about the technology and talk more about them. You will find they'll lean into you from the table versus kind of away. Because people just want to talk about people. People don't want to talk about technology. The second thing is just collaborate, right? The thing with all this change that's happening and integrating new technology is that we just don't know what we don't know, right? I have the luxury, and I'm very passionate about this, I have the luxury of just reading up on all these things, right? It's so exciting. And that's, when I take a step back, I'm like, this is so overwhelming for my clients, right? To be able to keep up with this. And so you want to build strong partnerships with folks that can help you facilitate this, can look out for you and say, hey, maybe you should look at this, maybe you should look at this, because you can't do it on your own. The last thing is just a commitment to change. I think I'll make this criticism of the folks, and I do this a lot in my presentations, the people in technology who you think should be most committed to change, in fact, are the least committed to change. And I think it has a lot to do with fear. Your professional reputation is on the line. There's high expectations that you know everything, right? IT is this magical place, and if we need something, we go there and they'll fix it for us, right? And so that perception still persists, and it shouldn't, right? And so I think this is why I think these industry, well, you saw the numbers, right? Why the industry that should invest most in technology invests the least in technology, right? The folks who should be leaning into change is kind of leaning back. So my ask to you is, as you think through your own transformation, the transformation you want to drive, really commit to that change and focus on helping your stakeholders understand that this is a journey, right? There's going to be mistakes we make, but we're going to learn from it. But mostly, because we focus on people first, we'll get more things right than wrong. So that's my presentation. Thank you.